So you're wondering why. You know what I'm saying? I made a pause right there because I wanted you to like soak in why the title of this video that you're seeing it on YouTube or wherever you're seeing it, it has seven. You know what I'm saying? Like we took the word seven, took the V out, put it to the side somewhere, and then put the seven in there. You know what I'm saying? That's the seven and shit. I did the seven with my hands and shit, my arms or whatever. But it's Alex Wood 64, man. Catch me on my new app if you don't already know, PentaGram. So you can download it to your iOS device and your Android device. It is a social media app for all things SEMO related or SEMO based. SEMO is a acronym for spirituality, esoterica, metaphysics, occult. So all those things in one place for any of you that deal with any of those things. Download the app, join us at the party. You know what I'm saying? You're welcome to the party. It's like we took a cult spiritual party, you know what I'm saying, otherworldly party, and we put it in an app form for your device. You know what I'm saying? You're invited. As long as you come with some spirituality, esoterica, metaphysics, occult, you're invited. Come through. But this video here, how can I say this? Let me put it to you in a way that all will understand and no one will, you know what I'm saying, miscomprehend or misinterpret. Some people don't know, or they do know. Let's put it like this. Maybe there's laziness. Maybe there's a twisted viewpoint of the world based on prior experiences. But when it comes to assessing all things mind, psyche, psychology, psychiatry, things of the mind, whether we're talking about mental superiority, intelligence, mental illness, any of these things, why put dumb shit on top of it where it doesn't need to be? See, I'm doing a motion with my arms. I think I gotta do kind of like a sign language for the spiritually deaf. You know what I'm saying? Because there's the physical deaf where, you know what I'm saying, they can't hear out of their actual ears. But then there's a spiritual deaf. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, where they say you have to have the eyes to see and the ears to see. Niggas don't have the ears to hear. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about the spiritual hearing. Like they can hear something, but they can't really interpret the nuances in what's being heard. So then you gotta do like some, you know what I'm saying, sign language for them and shit. So if you have mind, why are you putting these misinterpreted frameworks upon it where it doesn't need to be? So today we're going to be talking about a very simple and basic level concept: 7 universal laws. I don't consider you woke, conscious, spiritual, or truly occult if you haven't gotten the 7, some people call it Hermetic laws. You'll know about Hermetic laws. You'll probably know about universal laws, universal principles. If you don't know these 7 things front to back, side to side, up and down, or whatever, and throughout, I can't take you serious. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a black absurdist, which means that everything is to be made fun of in the physical. And worlds that are, you know, planes of existence that, you know, are, you know, within the physical, because there's really no above as far as, you know, physical, in physical terms. It's more about it being penetrated into the thing that is, you know, lesser, I mean, more dense than, you know what I'm saying? We'll explain it. I'll explain it. But if you don't know these 7 principles and their nuances, I can't take you serious. So if you're coming at me or you're trying to explain something to me, or I see you explaining something where the framework is unnecessary and it's excessive, extraneous, I mean, I gotta make fun of you. I gotta lampoon you. You know what I'm saying? I have to see the absurdity and then make note of the absurdity by being absurd. So let's get into it, man. And what I'm gonna do is, you should know. I don't know if you know about this simple book, One of the quintessential books you want to read when it comes to metaphysics or anything of an occult nature. The Cabalium. Very simple book to read, very common book to read. It's written by the three initiates, which is kind of like a, I guess it's supposed to be a pseudonym for, whoever truly wrote it. But the laws therein has nothing to do with the author. Like, those laws are timeless. They're timeless. You know what I'm saying? So, however and whenever someone decides to make an interpretation of it, the interpretation may be modern, but the actual principles will always be fucking ancient. Timeless. You know what I'm saying? Time doesn't factor into these principles and how constant they are. What makes them principles, what makes them laws is their constancy. They don't switch up, they don't change up, they stay what they are. And that's something you can build. When something is stable and it's constant, you can build foundations upon it. See me using that spiritual sign language again? And that's what you can do. So when you come with a framework that is on the side of variables, meaning that it's more about perspective rather than actual truth of things, I can't take you serious because you're not really getting to the root of what mind actually encompasses. You know what I'm saying? Like when I talk about the Church of Jung, like people that adhere to the teachings of Carl Jung or Sigmund Freud and all these, they don't understand that these are interpretations and not actual fact. These are these men's interpretation of something that is beyond your interpretation. So what are they doing? They're putting a framework on something where the framework doesn't fucking need to be there. You know what I'm saying? It don't need to be there. It's extraneous, it's excessive, and then if you're going to try to interpret that to other people, you're doing them a disservice. You know what I'm saying? You're doing them a grand disservice. Now, obviously, we're dealing with 7 universal principles, which is the reason why we're naming this thing 7, you know what I'm saying? And the whole thing about God and being in the title, like, you get me closer to God. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie 7, which is one of my very absolute favorite movies. It came out in somewhere in the late 90s it came out. I think it was 97. I just want to be sure. It's the movie with Brad. Okay, it came out in 1995. So it was the movie with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman as police detectives, and they go after this killer who, his killings are based on the 7 deadly sins. You know what I'm saying? And it's a very important movie in terms of who gets to judge. You know what I'm saying? Which we ain't gonna go deeply into this video about it, but I just wanted to flavor my video with 7. So it's going to be, dark. It's going to be grim and a little bit sinister, and it only be grim and sinister to those of you who adhere to mental frameworks that are no longer needed and never were needed. You know what I'm saying? So let's get started. So what I'm doing here is, and the whole reference of you get me closer to God is, if you know about the movie 7, the title sequence, the song of that title sequence is from the 9 Inch Nails rock band, 9 Inch Nails. And the song has that lyric in it, you get me closer to God. You know what I'm saying? I love that saying because we're going to be looking at that word not in its Christian theological context. So I call that CTI, Christian Theological, or no, that's my other acronym. Christian Theological Context. So that's CTC. There we go, because I got it mixed up with another acronym. CTC, Christian Theological Context. So whenever I'm saying words like devil or Satan or hell, demons, people get a Christian mind frame or Christian theological set of thinking when you use these type of words. I'm not using those words in that context. So if I'm saying God, I know that I don't mean it in a Christian theological context. If I'm using devil, I don't mean it in a Christian theological context. If I'm saying sin or heaven, hell, angel, any of these words that you get for, you know what I'm saying? Any of those words, we mean them in their in a context outside of that theology. So what I'm doing here is I just got a simple picture. You won't be able to probably see it on here that clearly, but it's basically a picture of, or like a diagram of the seven principles of the universe, or the seven Hermetic laws. And what we're going to do is I'm going to freestyle this a little bit, meaning we're just going to go through each, because there's just a simple definition for each law, or simple, you know what I'm saying, the common interpretation of each law. And we're going to build upon what we know as we go along. And you'll see what I mean when we get started. So whenever someone is presenting to you the seven principles of the universe, or the seven Hermetic laws, they always start with mentalism, the law of mentalism, the principle of mentalism, which simply states all is mind, the universe is mental. So that means what? There's never a time when there is not mind. There is never a place where there is not mind. So even when you take time and place or space out of something, where you're not observing things in that fashion of space-time, or the space-time continuum, where we're dealing with physical objects across time, right? All of that is mind. There is never a time or space where there is not mind. As you watch this video, you are looking at mind. You're observing mind. Now, to what degree or what plane of the mind are you watching this on, or observing this, is a different ballpark. And we're going to get into that as we go into another law here. But there's never a time where there is not mind. It's all mind. Every observation you've ever had, every experience you've ever had, its core is mind. So if you want to say that everything else is illusion, I'll accept that. Because again, the deeper you dig into anything, you shall find mind. Don't matter what it is. And as an alchemist, what you'll find in a lot of alchemical texts is that the alchemist is searching for the prima materia, which is mind. That's what they're looking for when they do all the alchemical processes to an object or to a thing. You know what I'm saying? They're burning it, they're fermenting it, they're distilling it, they're pulverizing, they're doing all these things to it. To what? To get to the core of the matter. So what is the core of the matter? Mind. So what does this mean for when we're dealing with quantum physics or quantum mechanics, or when we're dealing with chemistry or atoms and quarks and leptons and bosons and fermions and string theory and all that shit? What are we actually talking about? All those words, all those terms are part of a framework that they're putting on what is called mind. The first universal principle, all is mind, universe is mental. So that means if we're dealing with Western science, or any type of science in general, whatever science you want to pick, the core of the matter is beyond atoms, it's beyond subatomic particles, and you get into mind. The core of anything, I'm about to drink this coconut milk mixture. But when I say coconut milk mixture, that's not the true thing of what that is. It's actually mind. My computer that I'm recording this on, it's mind. My mouse, it's mine. My phone, it's mine. My necklace, you know what I'm saying? Worth more than your jewels on your neck right now. It's all mine, baby. All mind. All mental. So my issue with a lot of people is they're putting things on top of mind that don't belong. They're still in the illusion, or excuse me, they're still in the illusion of things. So starting with, like is Muslim or a Christian or, someone who practices Judaism or something. What they're doing with their theology is putting a framework on top of mind to cover up the actual mind itself. Does it stop at those three religions? No, it does not. Of course it doesn't. Because then it gets into metaphysics, niggas talking metaphysics, niggas in the occult, niggas in the spiritual community, niggas in the new age community. Because what did I just say earlier? The Church of Jung. So when people want to sit here and talk about things in terms of consciousness, unconsciousness, subconsciousness, the shadow, this and that, and I'm like, bruh, these, not to say that they are completely wrong, but you have to understand it was some man's interpretation of mind. So his interpretation is right there neck and neck with someone talking about quantum physics, someone talking about chemistry, someone talking about Islam, Christian, because these are all frameworks that take the mind and put it into some sort of structure that is unneeded and unnecessary. Just deal with the mind. Why are we interpreting it through this man's eyes or through this religion's eyes? We don't need that. See, now you're putting a filter on something that doesn't need to be. You're putting on beer goggles where you can just see it as it is. We can observe it as it is. That's it. Why are you putting extra shit on it? You know what I'm saying? It's probably kind of like Caucasoid people when it's like, they all they do is put some salt in the chicken. They don't put all these different seasonings. They probably looking at us like, why'd y'all put all that stuff on there? Why not just eat the chicken pure? Why just not eat the chicken as it is? Why you got to put all this adobo and seasoned salt and lemon juice? Why you got to do that? Just like a pinch of salt and that's it. You know what I'm saying? But nah, for real. Why do you look at, or not even saying look, observe mind as it is. Not as it appears to be based on the framework that you're using to assess it or to observe it. That's it. Because again, I'm putting it all in one fucking box. Your Christianity, your Carl Jung shit, your Sigmund Freud shit, your American Psychiatric Association shit with all their personality disorders and DSM-V or 6 or whatever fucking volume they are, all their shit about the mind, putting it in that box. Your Islam, put it in that box. Your particle physics, put that in the box. Your quantum mechanics, and you put all that in the box. It's the same shit. These are frameworks trying to interpret mind in an or shall I say they're trying to interpret mind with these filters that don't belong. So we have the law of mentalism, right? And then also with the law of mentalism, because everything is mental, whatever, some people are under the impression that all there is about mind is thoughts. And expect me to keep a straight face when they say things like that. Thinking is not the only thing you do with mind. Thinking is not the only thing mind does. My goofy friends that think that, thinketh. To the great men that thinketh, this is my message to all the great men and women that thinketh. Mind is not limited to thought. What else what else does mind does? Mind observes. Mind knows. Mind wills. Then it thinks. So how you gonna skip or not deal with will, observation, and pure knowing, which is, if you're dealing with Gnosticism, you're doing it with Gnosis. How you gonna just skip those three things? You know what I'm saying? Those three phenomena. You know what I'm saying? How you just gonna skip that out? Like everything is just pondering and thinking. Is that all you're doing with your mind? See, when you take up that type of shit, that's what leads you into these filters that don't belong when you're observing mind. Because you can observe something without even thinking. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of these Hindu motherfuckers will have you on that tip too. Like, just observe. Why you gotta think all the fucking time? Just observe. No. You know what I'm saying? Gnosis. No. Just know. You know what I'm saying? Why thinketh all the time? Just know. Now, okay, so now let's get into the second universal law, which is correspondence. So what are we doing? So if the first law is mentalism, telling you that all is mind, so that means the next 6 principles are attributes of mind, features of mind, since mind is all. The next 6 principles are what? Their interpretation, or not interpretation, excuse me, because I was getting too mixed up with the people's filters and shit of the mind. These six principles, from 2 to 7, are attributes of the mind, features. They describe the mind. So you start with the initial principle, and all the other 6 principles are, you can say, are underneath that one principle. You know what I'm saying? So the master principle is mind. All is mind. The law of mental, that's the master principle. Then you get into minor ones. That's the 6 right here. So the first of the 6 is correspondence. So this law is telling you about your mind. So it says the law of correspondence, or the law of analogy. As above, so below. As below, so above. As within, so without. As it is in heaven, so it is on earth. So this is telling you something about mind, since all is mind. So within mind, there's correspondence. Are you understanding? So that means there's never a time where nothing is like there's never a time where there's nothing corresponding with something else. Or when we say, so it is in heaven, it is on earth. So we're telling you that there are, I guess, levels or planes that's implying that there's level and planes to that which is mind. So whatever is on this level, here's my spiritual sign language again. Whatever is on this level of mind corresponds with what's on this level of mind. And whatever's on this level corresponds with this level. Whatever's on this, and so on and so forth. So the lowest level of mind still corresponds with the highest level of mind. As above, so below. As it is in heaven, so it is on earth. So the most dense plane there is has to have its correspondences with the highest plane there is. That's how this shit works. That's according to this. So let's put that in context of people talking about the earth is the physical plane is an illusion, right? Or it's samsara, or it's Maya. Like it's not what it appears to be. It's not the real way that the mind appears. Okay, I understand that. But what's also need to be understood is, if it's an illusion, what is the illusion based on? This is a very motherfucking detailed illusion for it not to be based on something, you know what I'm saying? What is it based on? If we have stars in the physical sky that we observe in this illusion, and we have a ground, what is it? What is that symbolizing? What's the symbology? What's the symbolism of that? What does it mean? What is it telling? What is it showing? What can you gather from that? What's the source of the illusion? How come you're going through the illusion? When does the illusion stop? When did it start? How does it start? See, if we go into the law of correspondence or the principle of correspondence or the law of analogy, and I've been telling people that for years, apply the law of analogy. You got all this book knowledge now, or you've been watching all these niggas on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. Now let's start putting your information and seeing how it correlates and corresponds with other pieces of information, to see if we can find a common denominator or a thread that ties it all together, right? You see what I'm saying? So, for example, if we're talking about stars in the sky that you can observe in the illusion with your own two eyes, right? How does it correspond to things on Earth, or as in the illusion? For example, you see that you're on the ground, and then you have the stars. What is that telling you? What is that symbolizing? That there's physicality that is more dense than something that's above you in the clouds or beyond, in what you would call outer space, right? But we know through sciences like astrology, where we can interpret what's in the stars to know how things, you know what I'm saying, play out on the earth, or the, you know what I'm saying, the ground level. So if it's an illusion, what is it telling you about what's going on in your mind? What is it saying? That there are forces that do not have the same density as you that control things down here in this denser level of understanding, or denser level of the mind. So there's correspondence going on. You know what I'm saying? So with that correspondence, now we know how that part of things relates to this part of things. So again, there's no real separation between planes. So as it is on that plane, or as it is up here, so it is down here. So again, whatever is the root of the illusion that you're observing, there has to be something that it corresponds to that you can access and observe beyond this physical thing. Also, you can call this isomorphism, where there's a correlation between one thing in one system to another thing in another system. So when I say things like, oh, the human body is isomorphic to the protein within the cells of the human body, meaning that all your behaviors as a human being are based on these protein behaviors within the cells of your body. So there's a correspondence there. And why is there correspondence? Because if we're saying that the earth itself is like that unto a cell, so that would mean that the sun would be correlated to the nucleus, and then these various viral particles would be correlated to the stars. So there's a correspondence going on. Now, even though it's still physical, there's still a correspondence. You know what I'm saying? And then there's how should I say this? There's a order of hierarchy going on. So that means that the protein within the cell is closer to the original thing, or the original plane of things, than the actual physical human that exists on this in this illusion. So that means that the human takes its behaviors from the protein. The protein doesn't take its behaviors from the human. Do you see what I'm saying? The human bases its behaviors off the protein. It's basing its behaviors off of that. Meaning it is on a lower, denser plane than, the proteins themselves. And then also the proteins and anything on that microscopic level is taking its behavior from something that's on a higher plane of the mind. This is how in my video about mitochondria, that's what we were talking about in that video, how the mitochondria and their activity can be correlated to the entire occult realm itself. So everything you do in the occult realm, as far as your rituals, you dealing with necromancy, all this stuff, the mitochondria do it first. It starts with them, as far as physicality is concerned. But then, like I said, there's a higher plane to the mitochondria, and then a higher plane, until we get to the actual mind of things itself. So this is how I, like, when it comes to psychology, when it comes to knowing about these microbes or the microcosm, the microbiome, we know these behaviors of these microbial entities that precede human behavior. Human behavior is based on these motherfucking microbes. So what does that say? Perhaps what you're observing in the physical is actually based on what's going on in the cellular level of your being. So this also relates to my dream genome thesis, where I said that your dream is a coded depiction of what's going on the cellular level of your being. And one, on one plane of things. And then, like I said, we get into the realm of forces that, make up the mind, or that are encompassed within the mind. But as far as physicality is concerned, it originates in that microscopic shit, and then it gets into this macroscopic, multicellular existence that you live in, or this illusion, if you want to call it that. That's what it's based on. So that's the law of correspondence. So now, what else about the mind do we need to know? Vibration. So we're talking about the law and principle of vibration, which states nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. So there's nothing in the mind that is not moving. Everything moves. Everything is in motion. Everything. There is no such thing as absolute zero movement. It doesn't exist. Even thoughts, for you thinketh niggas, it always moves. I've said this before, you can be perfectly still right now, and then inside of your flesh, there's movement. Within your spirit, there is movement. Everything vibrates. So what does this mean for spirituality? It means that, could it be that I can be vibrating a certain speed or certain signature, and you could be vibrating at another signature, and the person next to you in the illusion could be vibrating at a certain signature? So now we can see that within everything vibrating, certain things vibrate differently from other things. So this is where you get the concept of the field. I have my own force field, my own spirit field, my own bioenergetic field. There's so many different names. My own astral field. It's not separate from your field, it's distinct. It's not separate from your field, because nothing would be separate in this mind. All is mind. So it would be distinct, which is the reason why when you observe things in the illusion, there's things that appear to be different to other things. This is why I look like how I look in the illusion. This is how you look in the illusion. Because there's vibratory movement that is distinct from yours or from something else. There's distinction, not separation. So that means when it comes, let's go back to the previous law of correspondence. So just because there's this level plane and this plane of the mind does not mean that there's separation from them. There may be distinctions, but not separations. There may be distinctions, but the correspondence is there. I mean, is it starting to kind of like coalesce for you? Like it's starting to take, you know what I'm saying? You're starting to see this now, or observe this the way it needs to be observed. In fact, what was it, like 5 years ago, I had came up with a kind of like an acronym for this shit, New Life. So NULIFE, New Life, which stands for Numeric Linguistic Frequency Entity. So I'm New Life, you are New Life. You're a numeric linguistic frequency entities. Because why are we making, or are we putting that together? So numeric, going back to the whole thing of arithmetic. So we can also talk about the 7 liberal arts and sciences too. Because that, you know what I'm saying, that would go into the mind as well, or into mind as well. But just dealing with arithmetic, numbers, which are principles, you know what I'm saying, they're forces within the mind, right? So when I say numero and then linguistic, we're talking about words, vibrations. So we're talking about principal vibrations, you having a frequency and then you being your own entity. So that's where I came up with New Life. And then new lives, if we're talking plural, where we're talking about, again, numero-linguistic, vibrational energy signature. So numero-linguistic, vibrational energy signatures. New lives, new life. So each new life has its own vibratory signature. So it's moving just like everything else, but it moves in its own way. It moves in a way distinct from this thing over here or that field over there. And that's really the makeup of this whole fucking illusion. There are vibrations that do not vibrate the same as other vibrations. They vibrate faster, they vibrate in different directions, they vibrate in other colors, they vibrate in other quantities. But again, this is mind. Mind vibrates all the time. I ask you, think if motherfuckers, or you motherfuckers that claim to be occult, when have you ever experienced something where there was no vibration at all? And I want you to describe that experience to me. I want you to show me how I can have the same experience where there was no vibration at all. Because if you wasn't to vibrate, there would be no way to observe you. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not moving. It's not even considered death at that point. Because you still have a spirit, or, you know what I'm saying, a vibrational field even after your physical body is over with. You know what I'm saying? So what is it? What is the experience where you're not moving at all? Because this leads into what I'm talking about as far as heat is concerned. Heat, temperature, fire, and all these things dealing with heat. Because if something is moving, something is vibrating, it's generating heat. No matter how slow the vibration is, and obviously if it's moving fast enough, it's going to generate some sort of heat signature as well. So what is it like to experience absolute zero where there is no vibration at all? If that's what you experience, I want you to tell me how I can experience it too, and what was it like? Until then, we're sticking to what this is talking about. You know what I'm saying? Everything moves, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. You know what I'm saying? Every number, which demonstrates a elemental principle of, you know what I'm saying, the universe, of the mind, that generates heat. For it to move, for it to vibrate, heat has to be a part of that. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be the same heat as the physical illusion, but it's heat nonetheless, because heat in this physical illusion corresponds, talking about law of correspondence, to those levels of heat on higher planes of existence. So-called higher, you know what I'm saying? Not talking higher in terms of up and down, because that doesn't exist on certain planes of existence. So let's get into the next one. The principle of polarity. Everything is dual, meaning the mind is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Very key. Different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. So the key thing that I just said is different in degree. Same thing, different in degree. So let's talk about planes again. Here's my spiritual sign language, right? Earth, emotions, because this is, niggas like to kind of structure this shit like they really know. So they'll say things and then they'll relate it to the chakras, right? There's the physical, the astral, the emotional, the mental, and all that. Even if I accept it as true of what you're talking, if you're saying things in that mode of thinking, right? They're not really different from each other. According to the law of polarity, how would they be different from each other? What's the difference? Because the polarity is telling you that, you know, they're identical in nature, but different in degree. So how would heaven and earth be that different from each other? They're the same. It's all mind. That's what makes them the same, but just distinct and different in degree. You see what I'm saying? So we know, you know, for example, if we're talking about the physical illusion, we know that the physical illusion vibrates slower than planes of existence in the mind that are so-called higher or moving faster. So even as you observe the illusion, you're still looking at all planes of existence. You just may not be aware of the fact or have the gnosis that you are observing these higher planes when you observe them. It's like hiding something in plain sight. There's never a time that you're not observing mind. So even as you observe the illusion, unknowingly, you are still also observing all the planes that are, you know, considered higher in vibration than the physical illusion. Everything is dual. That's the first thing that this principle of polarity is saying. You know what I'm saying? Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. So when it comes to opposite things, like for example, heaven and earth, they're only separated by a matter of degree. And if you want to talk about degree, we can definitely talk about heat again. So we know if we add more heat to something just in the physical illusion, it changes and it rises because heat rises, right? Knowledge to media. Heat rises and knowledge to media. So as we add more heat to something, that's exciting it. You know what I'm saying? So as we excite something, guess what? We're bringing its vibration up and up and up. The vibration increases. So all extremes meet. For example, if we're talking about extreme cold and extreme heat in the mind and its truth, guess what? The extreme heat and extreme cold are the same damn thing, for example. Just different in degree. Mind. We still talking about mind. We're not talking about anything separate. So this is how your mind works. This is how your vibration within the mind works. As the vibration as it is exclusive to you, as it deals directly with you. And then how my vibration deals directly with, you know what I'm saying, this seemingly separate entity from the mind. So there's nothing really different between our two vibrational fields except by degree. Okay, so let's deal with the next one. Since we're always dealing with duality now, we brought in duality with the principle of polarity. Now we're bringing in the principle of gender. And like I said, some of these are ordered differently. If you go to different websites, you look at different diagrams, different people you're talking to, they like these won't always be in order of, of presentation, but usually mentalism is always going to be the first law stated, and correspondence will be the second one. That's what I'm seeing. That's a constant when people are presenting the 7 universal laws or whatever. So the principle of gender, right? Since we already deal with polarity, we deal with gender now. So gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So this is for those of you who have a spiritual sickness. We ain't even gonna call it mental illness, because if you don't understand mind as we're explaining it here, you're gonna be ill. You know what I'm saying? So that's damn near every motherfucking body that don't understand this knowledge. So for those of you that are uninitiated and don't even understand this Hermetic stuff or this universal laws, you are functionally ill by default. So talking about gender, what I was starting to say is that if you're disregarding, let's say you're one gender. Let's say you want to be female, right? You're of the female gender. For you to disregard or not deal with the masculine side of things, that's a sickness right there. It could come just from your ignorance, but that's a sickness. If there's a feminine gender, there has to be a masculine one, according to this law of gender. There is no such thing as femininity without masculinity. There is no such thing as masculinity without femininity. Now, you can join them together or merge them together, but at the same time, you can't have one side and not have the other. You have to. We're dealing with polarity too. So you can even see the law of gender as a second explanation of polarity. Because someone can easily say, okay, if you have hot and cold, well, let's say hot is feminine, or, well, to be more, in line with things, the masculine is considered yang, which is heat when we're dealing with the yin yang symbol, and then yin is considered cold. You know what I'm saying? Even the languages you speak, especially the Latin languages. Damn near every Latin language, whether you're talking about Latin itself, Italian, Romanian, Spanish, Espanol, these languages have damn near every word that they have has a masculine, or thing that they're referring to has a masculine and a feminine principle to it, or a feminine side to it. So there's some nouns in Spanish that are considered masculine, and there's other nouns that are considered feminine. So like in the Spanish language, if something ends with the O, it's usually masculine. If it ends with the A, it's usually feminine. Like hermana and hermano, or if, you know what I'm saying, that's even a thing. That's letting you know that this word is masculine, this word is feminine. Or this word is feminine, this word is masculine. So even in the linguistics of things, there's feminine and masculine shit going on. You know what I'm saying? And gender, it manifests on all planes. So there's no plane that you can observe about the mind that doesn't have a masculine and a feminine principle attached to it. And then if we get into the whole thing of force and form, we can say that force is masculine and form is feminine. Because force, it penetrates form just like man penetrates woman. You know what I'm saying? So the mind is constantly sexual. So that's what this law is pretty much telling you about gender. It's sexual. Just the word itself, gender, gen, that means generative. Genesis. How does physical bodies come into play? There was some sexuality going on, whether it's the natural where, you know, you having sex and a nut is busted and a egg cell is touched by, you know what I'm saying, that sperm hits the egg. Even if you're in a laboratory dealing with test tube shit or genetic engineering, you still have to deal with masculine and feminine principle. So you're artificially taking masculine material and injecting it into a feminine cell. You know what I'm saying? And then growing that test tube baby. So you're still dealing with masculine, feminine principle. The whole yin yang, yang and yin, masculine, feminine. So the mind is both genders. Now, which one is expressed physically as far as the illusion is concerned? Again, this is where you would also bring in the fact of syzygy. S-Y-Z-Y-G-Y, syzygy. Which is a concept where the egg is both masculine and feminine. There's a masculine thing going into it, which is a sperm cell, going into the egg, which is feminine. So that means for every masculine human, there's a feminine human that corresponds to that masculine human. So this would explain your whole twin flame shit going on, the whole twin flame soulmate shit. Not necessarily the soulmate, but definitely the twin flame concept. Because a lot of people don't really understand where that comes from. You know what I'm saying? So you, as a human being, you like a human, like this flesh and being illusion. There is a masculine and a feminine part of you based on you had a mother and a father, right? So you express the father side if you're a masculine being, and then if you know it's feminine, you express your mother side physically. But what happens to that other side? So my feminine side exists as a human being somewhere. Will I ever meet her in this lifetime? Who knows? Will you ever meet your other half? You know what I'm saying? Because that's a term that people use. Will you ever meet your other half in this lifetime? Who knows? But again, we going back to gender. This is how this thing works out. This is how it manifests on this plane of physicality, this, you know what I'm saying, illusion, but it's also the same on every single plane of this mind. And again, that goes back to polarity and that goes back to correspondence. So correspondence is in the law of gender. It's in the law of polarity. You know what I'm saying? It's there. So if you're reading these laws or principles without looking at the whole picture that they're included in, you're going to miss the nuance. You're going to miss the point of the whole thing. So the next law is, or principle, is dealing with the principle of rhythm. So everything flows in and out. Everything flows in and out, right? Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swings. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. So again, we're still dealing with polarity, because if we're talking about things swinging from one side to the left, it's still polarity. And then if they swing from masculine to feminine, that's still that polarity going on. And then things oscillating, which is another term for swinging, we're talking about what? Vibration. Because if you study any Western science dealing with light in the electromagnetic spectrum, vibration and oscillation are used interchangeably. So now we're talking about things on a swing. So what's the most obvious thing that's on a swing that you should know about, that you should be mastering? Your breathing, breath work. That's a swing, my nigga. The most obvious one. As you breathe in, you swing inside, and then as you breathe out, you swing out. In, out, in, out. That is the fucking basis of your existence. You're living as a physical thing on this motherfucking plane. And it corresponds to a oscillation on other planes of existence. So your breathing is symbolic of your core vibration, your core oscillation, your core swing of existence. Mind is constantly swinging, constantly vibrating from one side to the other, from one gender to the other. So if you're a living vibration, there's a swinging going on. So you can say that everything breathes in its own way. So everything doesn't have a fucking nose and a mouth to breathe out, but it has some sort of, the formula is always the same. It's breathing in one way or another. Fish underwater, breathing. They have the same mechanism. Something is swinging inside, something is swinging out. Something is swinging inside, something is swinging out. And that's what keeps it being. That's what keeps it something. It keeps it in existence through that swing. So this is why civilizations rise and fall. You know what I'm saying? Everything rises and falls. Everything has its valleys and peaks. Light itself, you know what I'm saying, has its valleys and peaks. It has its ups, it has its downs. You know what I'm saying? That's rhythm. So when we get into things like sacred dancing or hiero choreography, where you dance in a sacred way and it manifests something based on, you know what I'm saying, the way that you're moving your body, the way that you're swinging your hips, the way, you know what I'm saying? Like, this shit is sacred and this is divine shit. So if you're out here dancing without understanding that you can put yourself into movements that bring things from the heavens, or it makes things do this or do that. Because what I started to discover is that if you dance a certain way, you're spelling things out. So you can look at your physical self in this illusion as a culmination of letters. So you're just one big composite alphabet, and the way you move in this shit can determine what things are going to happen. Because you're spelling things out when you move. So for motherfuckers that don't know how to move, guess what they're spelling out in their existence? For niggas that don't know how to breathe correctly, guess what they're spelling out into their existence? Because they don't have control over their breath. So if you don't even have control over your vital swing that keeps you living, nigga, you're not the master of anything. You're not in control of anything. Because again, your swing is on every plane of existence. So for the physical illusion, it appears as a respiratory system within your body. But on a higher plane of the mind, it doesn't exist physically. It's still a swing, but it's not a physical one. So one of the things we do in alchemy is making sure that our vital swing on every plane of existence is moving faster than it was before. We're trying to make that swing be much faster than it was. So some people swing, or most people, let's say the plebeians or the uninitiated, their swing is going to be so much slower than someone like me who's increasing that swing. And one of the ways that you do that is if you're conscious of your breathing, you can increase that swing. And you do rituals to increase that swing. Because the faster it swings, the faster you vibrate, the faster you'll come to the realization of what mind actually is. So it's just not me fucking explaining it to you. It's me coming to the realization of what's actually going on. So this is the true science of breath, not just simply trying to, you know what I'm saying, again, we're doing it on, this is correspondence. Again, we're going back to the law of correspondence. So we're not just doing this for our physical health. We're actually dealing with the swing or the oscillation that keeps us in existence. our own vibratory field. We're increasing its volatility. So a concept that you'll deal with in alchemy if you go deep enough. The fixation and volatility concept. Solve a coagula. And then there's some people that say that they know how to manipulate the swing where, you know what I'm saying, they keep it to one direction and control things with it. And like I said, I would like to see that in real life. There's some you're saying, I would like to observe it, you know what I'm saying, and see if that's really what it is or not. You know what I'm saying? Because what you can do, and this relates to the whole checkered floor in masonry, is that you can go beyond a swing. You know what I'm saying? So if things are happening and they appear to be dark to you or they appear to be negative, and then they swing back to the positive, and then you have this swing. You know what I'm saying? So you're at the mercy of that swing. So people can control, you can be controlled that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how you can be emotionally manipulated. Like, someone can have you on this fucking roller coaster where you go this way and they got you like this, instead of getting off that swing and not dealing with that swing. Not to say that you won't ever be dealing with that an oscillation at all, but that physical oscillation that deals with events, like how things are up one day, they're down another day. You're up happy today and then you're down. Like, some people get caught into that trap. You know what I'm saying? But you can go beyond that. Just the mastery of your motherfucking breath. This is the breath work 101. And then finally, we have this last one, which is, I think, is very important to what we're talking about, as far as the mind is concerned. The law or principle of cause and effect, which states every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause, everything happens according to law, chance is but a name for law not recognized, there are many places of causation, but nothing escapes the law. So on every plane of existence, there is cause and effect. So there are many causes to an effect, but they all conform to this law. So what was I saying before when I was talking about, if we're talking about microbes and microscopic organisms and stuff like that, and how they are the model for our human behavior or for our behavior in the physical, right? There's a correspondence and then there's a cause and effect. So on that microbial level, there is more cause than there is in the physical or in our macroscopic experience in this illusion. So that means they have more authority and more power over us in the macroscopic level or plane of existence. So that means our behaviors, again, our things we do in society, everything we doing is based on their fucking their behavior and their construction of things. So if it doesn't already exist on their plane, there's no way it's going to exist on ours. You see what I'm saying? And then, you know what I'm saying, above in terms of, causes. Because if you're the cause of things, you are the power over all things. Again, if you're the cause of all this, you have the power over it. So until you realize that you have that power over it, you will not have power at all. You know what I'm saying? Because now we're talking about forces that are supposed to be beneath you in the hierarchy, having control over what goes on, instead of you having the ultimate say of what goes down. And then bringing in this concept, and this is something to be understood based on this whole 7 principles, is that in the physical, everything is an effect. There are no causes on this level of physicality. There is no cause. It's all effect. Which then leads me to tell you, no physical thing causes any other physical thing. Let me slow it down. No physical thing is the cause of any other physical thing. And on the physical plane, you are in the realm of effects. There is no cause here. It's a reflection or a refraction of something in a plane above it, in the mind, in mind. So you can never truly control things physically while being completely physical. You are at the mercy of a cause beyond the physical plane. So this is where you ascend up the hierarchy of causes to be the ultimate cause. That's mind. That's where the ultimate force of all things exists. Again, you are always in observation of it, but you don't always know you're observing it. You may be looking at it in terms of its physicality or how what's physical corresponds to it. But this is the realm of effects. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, if I swing a bat at a baseball, the baseball does not simply hit the ball. No. There's a cause that sets up the whole event where it's the cause of this physical bat appearing to hit this physical ball and knocking the ball out of the park. Because this is where I talk about the thing of narrative linguistics, where the structure of this shit is very narrative. If you ever say that your life is a story, your life is a book. You can write a whole book on your life. It's just like out of the movie. It's a story going on. So why wouldn't you apply what you know about narratology into the actual existence of things? How we talk about genetics and Akashic records, how that's being the writing of the way things unfold for us, not even in this illusion, but planes above that. It's a narrative structure. So we know that in like an entire narrative, it's broken down by events. So you have the narrative, and then you have the events of the narrative. So what happens in the event? So everything in the event is subservient or beneath the event. So the event in that hierarchy is the ultimate thing, while everything else serves the event. So if you have an event, guess what you have? You have characters, you have settings, you have props, you have themes. Because what event is ultimately going to have a theme before it has anything else. So everything in the event conforms to the theme, and the theme conforms to the event. Or it can be, no, scratch that. You can the theme is greater than the event, because the event conforms to the theme, because the event is supposed to express a theme. Let me correct myself. I got carried away. The theme can be the ultimate reason why a narrative exists. You know what I'm saying? A collection of themes. But these themes can also be known as abstract concept or abstractions, right? So let's say violence, for example. If the theme of an event is violence, that means that everything in the event conforms and does what it does to express violence. See what I mean? Or the theme of life. Since, you know what I'm saying, you want to consider me a living entity or creature, you're a living entity or creature. That caterpillar, that elephant, that tree, that mouse, the scoundrel, the hoe, you know what I'm saying, the bitch ass nigga. This is all life. That's the theme. So the events correspond on every level downward to express the theme of life, to create life. Like Darth Sidious said, life. So this is, again, a reason why I say control the narrative, because if you control the narrative, everything in the narrative must conform to the dictates of the narrative forces and forms conform to the narrative. The force is nothing without a direction to go into. Why be forceful if there's no direction for you to move? So the narrative gives direction and shape to the forces and forms within that narrative or within that event. Because everything you niggas can explain to me about titans and gods and cliff-off forces and Sephiroth and all this shit, you're really explaining, how are you explaining it to me? You almost always explain it to me in a narrative. Even if you're talking to me about numbers, if we're talking about arithmetic, 7 does this, 6 does that, 5, you're telling me the story about a trend. Nigga, you're telling me a story, you're telling me a narrative. So that means each force, 1, 2, 3, 4, it all conforms to narrative. All of them do. So their total thing of what something does, and then in collection with what other things do, that's what we call a narrative. And then you got to ask yourself, does those forces ever stray from that narrative? Does the forces within a narrative have the ability to stray away from what they're supposed to do within the narrative? Do they have the power to do that? Because how does, like, for example, if you're talking about, your mind, now let's bring in the whole psychology of Carl Jung, like his framework, right? Because y'all like using unconscious. This is the unconscious. Your shadow is this, and all that goofy shit, right? So, okay. How does your mind, when it deals with memory, what's a memory? Without, bringing in this stuff about the 7 universal principles. Your memory is a narrative, because it's a beginning, an ending, and a beginning, a middle, and an end to that memory. Is where the memory starts, what takes place, and then where does it end. So your memories are nothing but narratives in the back of your mind, quote unquote. So your mind structure is narrative. So if you know like shit that you learn in English class or language arts, you can apply this to your metaphysics now, understanding that the structure is narrative. Knowing themes, motifs, archetypes, and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? What do they call a leaf motif or something like that? So these predefined structures that these elements within the narrative conform to. Your tarot deck is nothing but motif. Pre-established motif that things in existence conform to. And nothing goes outside of those motifs. So you can mix 3 different, 4 different, 5 different motifs together, but nothing goes beyond the fucking motifs that have already been established. So that's telling you what? That your existence, your physical existence, your spiritual existence, all these existences have a structured narrative to them that you can almost always structure, or shall I say not structure, but you can always track. Almost always. It's not 2K, it's not in a sense where you can never map it out. You can map out someone's entire life on that. Always. And what does that also mean? We can know someone's behaviors before, we can anticipate people's behavior, we can anticipate people's events as it occurs in their life. You can anticipate this stuff. Because you already know the motif, you already know the archetype in the story, you already know everything about story element. So all structures, you can always know how they're going to end and start and everything in between. And that's how you know your mind. Nigga, if you know how the movie starts, how the movie progresses, how the movie ends, my nigga, it's like you mastered it now. And then, like I said, we can bring in the linguistics of it, where again, we know that our genetics is based on linguistics. If you don't already know that, you may want to study wave genetics or the wave genome theory, where they, have done this observation of, the so-called physical DNA, first and foremost, and knowing that there's narrative or linguistic structure in it. So it's almost as if someone spoke your genetics. And we know about the Genesis, the whole book of Genesis, where it's even in that shit, where they tell you that in that book, something spoke. And there was vibration, there was something moved the waters based on something being spoken. And then knowing that your soul is also known as the logos, which is the word. So if your soul is known as a word or the word, why wouldn't you think that your existence wouldn't be linguistic? And then what do we use our linguistics for most of the time? Telling a story. So the niggas, control your narrative. That's the master. That's my mastery tip to you. So again, my whole issue with a lot of people sitting here talking about what they know about the mind and thinking and all this stuff like that is like, bro, you missing this whole thing that's telling you exactly what the mind is. What any person's mind is, and then mind itself as everything in collective and in sum total. Mind. All mind. Then that first law, and then the 6 after it describe the mind too. So why do I have to listen to your framework that does not even deal with these 6 principles and laws that tell me exactly what mind is? So your framework is subservient to this. And if there's an incongruency to it, then we got to get rid of that, because it's not really telling us what mind is. It's someone's interpretation, someone's, misinformed or inaccurate interpretation of what mind is. This tells us what it is. Like I just read to you the 7 principles. And hopefully I answered my own question to you. Like you saw that I answered my own question. One of my questions was, why does this illusion exist? Until you understand what the true narrative is and what the true mind is and how to observe mind in itself, you will have the illusion. Because I can sit here and observe this physical illusion and know what's actually going on. You know what I'm saying? That's gnosis. I know exactly what's going on, but to a degree. Maybe there's more degrees I have to assess in order to get a truer picture of what's going on. But I'm aware of the fact that this shit operates on a narrative linguistic structure. So as you observe your life, you're observing a narrative. Just as if you was observing a movie or a dream. It's a narrative. If it doesn't make sense to you, then there's more gnosis to be acquired. More knowing to be, you know what I'm saying, to access. So that was 7 right there. So again, let me wrap this up by saying go watch that movie because, you know what I'm saying, it's a doozy, you know what I'm saying? You're going to like it. If you don't like violence, I mean, maybe not. But the movie 7, man, I like that movie. And this was my attempt to get you closer to God. If only you knew what that word actually meant. And if you do, I welcome you to the know. So again, my name is Alex Will 64, or my physical self is named Alex Will 64, and you can catch me on my app, PentaGram. Download it to your iOS and your Android devices.